She'll be. Good morning, and welcome to our April meeting of the SBCAG board. And Ms. Contreras, would you call the roll?
Director Williams? Wolf?
Here.
Adam? Davanino? Richardson?
I'd like to make a comment. I'm not being disrespectful wearing this hat, but I had a divot taken out of the back of my head, and the wound looks bad, so I'm wearing a hat. Vanity makes me do that. Thank you. Here.
Here with the divot.
Lizaldi? Mosby? Bennett?
Here.
Clark?
Here.
Murillo?
Here.
Patino?
Here.
Sierra?
Here.
And Chair Hartman.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now is time for public comment on matters not on today's agenda. Do we have any comments, Ms. Contreras?
We have no public comment.
Okay, moving to the consent calendar. Does anyone have any item they would like to pull? Anybody in Santa Barbara? We do, Supervisor Williams isn't here, but if he were here, we would pull the last item. But since he's not, may I have then a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, and roll call vote, please.
Director Wolf?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
Davanino? Richardson?
Aye.
Lizaldi?
Aye.
Mosby?
Aye.
Bennett?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Murillo?
Aye.
Patino? Sierra?
Aye.
And Chair Hartman.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
Moving then to item number 5. Would you read that into the record, Ms. Contreras?
Certainly. Item 5, fiscal year 2018-19 overall work program and budget. 5A, conduct a hearing to accept public comment on the fiscal year 2018-19 overall work program and budget. 5B, adopt resolution 1815 approving the SBCAG overall work program and budget and a 3% cost of living adjustment for fiscal year 2018-19. 5C, approve and authorize the executive director to file and execute all necessary applications, overall work program agreement with Caltrans, certifications and assurances that may be required to receive the federal and state funds requested to finance the activities described in the overall work program and comprehensive budget for fiscal year 2018-19.
Thank you. Executive Director Kern.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. This was presented to you at your last meeting. I gave you a presentation, an overview of the budget and the work program. We also presented the budget and work program to our executive committee as required by, I think it was ordinance number 3 that we should have done all along. So we're making that part of our habit. In addition to that, it also requires a public hearing. So today is that public hearing. It was noticed in the newspaper, so we're allowing public comment. Next year, I plan to have the public hearing during when I give the presentation, so this will be in the previous month, so we can take that public comment as well. But we did receive comments from Federal Highway Administration and Caltrans and Federal Transit Administration, and those changes were made to the document of the overall work program. There were no overall changes to the budget other than what was presented to you at your last meeting. So at this time, I'd like the chair to open up the public hearing, and then I'll sit down and you can discuss it.
First, let me just make sure there are no questions from the directors and anyone in Santa Barbara. And so seeing no lights, I would like to open the public hearing. Do we have any public comments, Ms. Contreras?
We have no public comment.
Okay, with that, then I close the public hearing. And may I have a motion to adopt the recommended action?
So move.
Second.
And a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Wolf?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
Lavanino? Richardson?
Aye.
Lizaldi?
Aye.
Mosby? Bennett?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Murillo?
Aye.
Patino? Sierra?
Aye.
And Chair Hartman.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
And moving to item 6, would you read that into the record, please?
Item 6, Draft Measure A Program of Projects. Hold a public hearing to review and comment on the Draft Measure A Program of Projects for fiscal years 2018-19 to 2022-23.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Directors, Sarkis Kachek, SBCAG Programming Division Managers. Nice to see you all today. Well, it's my pleasure today to present the Draft Measure A Program of Projects for the next 5 fiscal years, which are 18-19 to 22-23. This is a public document that shows how Measure A dollars are being invested by SBCAG and our local agency partners to make sure that we're keeping the promises that we made to voters when they approved Measure A in 2008. So for today's presentation, I'm not going to go into too many details. I'm just going to be highlighting some of the projects that are included in the program of projects. Just some background, Measure A was approved by voters of Santa Barbara County in 2008 with 79% support, one of the highest approval ratings at that time. The measure will generate approximately $1.05 billion over the 30-year period, but for this program of projects, we're looking at a 5-year period. And during that time, we're going to have approximately $38 million available for allocation for SBCAG as well as our local agency partners. And then there's going to be $185 million available for the 5-year period. Of that amount, approximately 58% is going to go as pass-through to our local agency partners for their local investments, and then the balance is used by SBCAG and Santa Barbara MTD for regional projects. And then there are also some funds for local agencies for other improvements like bicycle and pedestrian projects. This chart here shows the growth in revenue, actual revenue to the program for Measure A. And as you can see, going back to fiscal year 10-11, which was the first year that we collected revenues for Measure A, we've been very fortunate and we've been seeing increase in revenues. And so as we got out of the recession, Measure A revenues continued to increase. Since fiscal year 15-16, the average growth rate has been about 2% per year. So we've been seeing a nice steady rate there. And then for the 5-year period, we're estimating 1% growth per year. We want to be conservative with our estimate just in case there are any changes in the economy and the collection of revenues. In terms of local investments, as you can see from this pie chart, approximately 64% of Measure A local revenues are being utilized for streets and roads investments. And then the second highest investment by our local agencies is for alternative transportation. There is a requirement included in Measure A that local agencies use a portion of their funds for alternative transportation investments. And so as you can see, that is being demonstrated here. And then the other major investments are for safety, urban forestry, and traffic signals. This is a fun picture. This is a picture of the Highway 246 passing lanes, which is actually going to be completed next month. So that's great news. And we also have our official Measure A photo model, Fred Luna, in the picture also. As you can see, this is a major North County improvement that is going to help improve traffic between Lompoc and the Santa Ynez Valley, and so we look forward to having a ribbon cutting for this project soon. And then another investment that's included in the regional program is for specialized transit. Approximately $2 million is going to be invested for Measure A for specialized transit to our transit operators. And so in North County, we have Smooth, which does provide specialized transit, and so you can see the impact that Measure A has in the community. In the South Coast, we do have another major milestone or project, and that was the implementation of peak hour passenger rail. which we're able to celebrate earlier this month. And this is obviously the lane in our lane and a train solution on the South Coast. And so we've been very excited by the implementation of the service, and commuters in our area are very excited by the service also. And then last but not least, the US 101 HOV project, which is the actual flagship project for our Measure A program, which will have $140 million available to the project. One great thing about Measure A and being a self-help county is that we're actually using Measure A as a match. And with the passage of Senate Bill 1 or SB 1 last year, and the implementation of programs by the California Transportation Commission, SBCAG and Caltrans co-partnered on the submittal of applications to help deliver segments 4A to 4C of the 101 HOV project on the Santa Barbara South Coast. We are leveraging about $50 million in Measure A along with our state share of gas tax funding, or the STIP money, and our request to the CTC was $183 million. And so that's part of our board's direction to SBCAG staff to pursue outside funding. And so we submitted those applications, and I'm crossing as many fingers as I can. But we do find out next week on April 25th what the CTC staff recommendations are for our project. And so we're hoping to have really good news next week. And I'm sure Director Kern will use a lot of exclamation points in our weekly update next week. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I hope it was informative and gives you an idea of how we're using Measure A, not just on the local level, but the regional level. That concludes the presentation. I did want to let you know that we did present the draft to the Technical Transportation Advisory Committee earlier this month. There were no comments or questions from them, and so next month we'll present the final program of projects to your board for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kachek?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay, Director Bennett.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that, because I think it puts it in the perspective of where we were and now where we're going as far as of the sales tax, that when we were negotiating the spending plan and put together the figures, it was estimated we would generate $35 million per year. So you're beginning, I think it was $29 million is where we went down to when it started, and now we're above that. So I'm thinking we're probably close to breaking even on what our plan was originally.
Yes, for at least the first 10 years, we're about breaking even, and then we're hoping that, barring any adjustments in the economy, obviously, that we can continue at least that 40 million mark, but we'll see, obviously, what happens with the economy.
Yeah, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but there's a recession on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Just a matter of when and how severe.
Director Lavanino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Sarkis, originally we planned in Measure A, I think, that our federal and state folks would toss in like 285. That was kind of our goal. So if we get this 183 and we got the 225, we're going to be somewhere around 400 million of their share. I don't want to jump the gun and jeopardize the 183 or start talking about it beforehand, but let's do it anyway. So if we did happen to get that, when would we start reevaluating what we've committed for local streets and roads that we're going to the 101? And when would we take a look at what our new kind of funding strategy might look like?
Great question. Chair Hartman, Director Lavanino, as soon as we hear what happens with the staff recommendations next week and, knock on wood, approval by the CTC at their May meeting, that's when they actually approve the funding. We are actually planning on an update to the Measure A strategic plan this summer. And so we are just waiting to hear what happens with that. And then our plan is to do a kickoff workshop at the June meeting in Santa Barbara.
Do we have any questions or comments in Santa Barbara? Seeing none, then okay. I would like to open the public hearing and see if we have any comments from the public here or in Santa Barbara.
We have no public comment.
Okay, and we don't require a motion on this, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 7, would you read that into the record, Ms. Contreras?
Item 7, Goleta Ramp Metering Study. Receive a presentation on the draft Goleta Ramp Metering Study and provide comments on the draft findings.
Good morning, Chair and Directors. I'm Mike Becker of staff. Today, our consultant will offer a presentation on the Goleta Ramp Metering Study and seek your feedback. The study began in late 2016 as a result of a shop candidate project for installing ramp meters on the State Route 217 ramp connection to southbound 101. SBCAG applied for and was successful in receiving state grant funding to conduct this study. On March 20th, staff and the consultant presented to the Goleta City Council. On April 5th, we brought this item to TTAC and received a recommendation for board acceptance. Tonight, we'll be conducting a public hearing or a public workshop in Goleta to inform the public and receive feedback. Following final edits will be incorporated and any comments will be addressed into a final report. Then we will return to the board in May seeking your acceptance of the study's findings. Our consultant, Mike Aronson of Kittleson and Associates, will offer a brief presentation on the study and its findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, directors. I'm Mike Aronson from Kittleson and Associates. We're going to give an overview of what we looked at for ramp metering in Goleta. First of all, just a little context. This is actually a ramp that was recently installed on Patterson, heading southbound on 101. And just a little context on ramp metering. The idea of ramp metering is not to prevent people from using the freeway. It's the idea of ramp metering is to smooth things out so that as people merge and stuff, you have a smoother merging. So it's just providing that little the idea is to provide that little extra smoothing of the traffic that lets the freeway carry a little more traffic at the same speed. So today we're going to talk about the purpose of the study, the data and observations that were made, existing conditions on the 101 freeway and the surrounding streets, the alternatives we looked at for ramp metering, and the evaluation of regional and the local effects. So the purpose of the study is to explore the feasibility and the potential impacts of ramp meters. And we're looking at ramps on US 101 and also entering State Route 217 coming away from the Santa Barbara campus. We looked at freeway congestion, we looked at queues on the ramps behind these meters, and also potential impacts in the local streets as people adjust their travel patterns in response to the ramps. The study area is US 101 and 217, and also looking at the parallel city streets in Goleta. And the stretch was from Cathedral Oaks down to Turnpike. So basically within just the city of Goleta areas where we focused the study. There was a lot of data collection done. I can provide more detail on this if anybody has any questions. The main ones were different types of traffic counts, and then GPS-equipped vehicles driving up and down the freeway to see exactly where things slow down and at what times. So the existing conditions, which many of you probably experience yourselves, in the morning, we have a couple stretches. We have, in the morning, we have congestion kind of after 217 merges in, heading down towards Turnpike. And also a stretch where the lanes narrow up around Fairview. And in the PM, we have a stronger congestion, particularly starting at 4 p.m., but particularly strong around 5 p.m. As the merge comes in from 217 and joins the 101 traffic. And that congestion extends down past Turnpike. On some days, I think all the way to Santa Barbara, but on the days we observed, it actually dissipates a bit and then picks up again as you get closer to Santa Barbara. We also looked at the local street intersections in Goleta. And these are the ratings, which many of you are familiar with the level of service ratings, where F is the worst, the failing grade, and A and B are the best, and D is considered, it's busy, but people are getting through more or less. So most of those major intersections on Hollister Avenue operating at level service D, which means it's pretty congested, but you more or less get through. You might have to wait one signal every once in a while. It's busy, but you get through it. We have a level service E condition, which is a little worse up at Fairview and Cala Real, which says you might have to wait a couple passes to get through that location. And then we looked at a number of alternatives for how to do ramp metering. The first one is kind of the do nothing, which is just going with what's there now. Like we said, actually it wasn't Caltrans, the county recently installed a ramp meter at Patterson, and that was part of a condition of approval for development nearby. So that ramp meter is now up and operating as of last year. So that's kind of our do nothing. We know we're going to have that ramp meter. Now, once you install a ramp meter, you could leave it green all the time. You don't have to, you can install it and then choose that it's not doing anything. But that meter's installed. We said, what happens if you just have that meter? The next one was the SHOT project that was mentioned. Let's have the Patterson meter and also install a meter where 217 comes in. And that was kind of like the initial Caltrans proposal for this location. In alternative 3, we said, let's meter every ramp entering 101, both northbound and southbound. If we just put meters everywhere, what does that do to the system? Alternative 4, we looked at, what if we leave 101 alone and just meter traffic getting on Highway 217 and see if we can get some of the benefits without actually putting any signals on the ramps in 101. We took a look at that, and after some initial analysis, so that's really not going to do anything, so that one was dropped from consideration. And in alternative 5, we said rather than metering down where the actual problem occurs, what if we can kind of smooth the traffic out beforehand? So rather than slowing people down at those busy ramps at 217 and Patterson, what if we can smooth the flow out by metering up at Fairview and some of the other interchanges, and see if we can smooth the traffic out ahead of time. The tools we used are, there's a freeway operations model, which was also used for the US 101 HOV study. It's actually the same thing that looks at the trade-offs between freeway flow and ramps. And then to go to the future, we used the City of Goleta's forecasting model, which actually contains their entire general plan build, all the land use they've proposed for their general plan, and what that growth would mean by the year 2035. And there's a little map there of the growth that's expected around Goleta. So first we looked at, what if we put a meter in right now? What would that do to things? Remember, alternative 3 is where we put meters everywhere. Alt 2 is where we just put them at 217, and Alt 1 is if you just have the meter at Patterson, what they've already done, and you run that meter. So this is focusing on the PM peak period, which is really the time the freeway slows down the most. And what this says is, yes, ramp metering would really make the freeway go faster. And the more metering you do, the more speed we get. So right now, we measured an average speed of 44 miles an hour on southbound 101 in the PM peak. With running the Patterson meter, we said we can get up to 48. If we add meter at 217, we can get up to 58. And if we meter everywhere, we can get up to 62 miles an hour on that stretch of freeway. And that sounds pretty promising from that side. But we also looked at the whole system, because we said, well, yes, we're benefiting the freeway, but what are we doing to people who have to wait at those signals at the ramps? And what about if people don't like waiting in line at the ramp and they divert onto other streets in Goleta? What does that do? So what we do is there's some modeling. We add up all the sum of all the vehicle hours of travel on the whole system and see what that does. So in the blue, you see all the hours of travel on Goleta local streets. In the yellow, you see the vehicle hours on the freeway itself. And we can see that yellow band gets a little smaller as you add more ramp metering, because we are improving the speed on the freeway and reducing the delay. And then the red is the total delay of people waiting for those meters to turn green. So what we find is, yes, we get these big benefits on the freeway, but we actually add back a lot of delay, total delay, for the people waiting at the signals. And if you look at alternative 3, where the blue band goes up a little bit, if we meter everywhere, people start diverting, and they cause a bit more congestion on roads like Hollister as they use the parallel routes to try and get around the lines at the meters. So in the net, we actually can get a slight increase in total delay, the total time people are spending in their cars on the system, when we add the meters. So even though we're getting this big freeway benefit, the net effect is maybe a slight increase in delay under existing conditions. We then went up to 2035. Now this is a situation where we have no improvements assumed on the system. So if Goleta builds every land use that's zoned for development, and we make no improvements on the system, the freeway, today I said it's 44 miles an hour. we slow down to under 20 miles an hour average speed. And at that level, this is beyond the level where ramp metering can help. Ramp metering can help you if you're kind of right on the cusp of congestion. When you have just too much demand, ramp metering can't do much for you. So we just get very slight improvements in the speed. They're kind of fractional if we go to that situation. And when we look at the total delay, it's kind of similar here. We're not getting the benefit on the freeway, but we're still getting, as we add ramp metering under alternative 3, where we have every ramp metered, we're increasing that delay of people waiting on the ramps and not getting the corresponding improvement on the freeway. And the blue bands go up a little bit. We still get a little diversion on the local streets. So in that scenario, where we have way too much demand for the available capacity, the ramp metering doesn't really provide the benefit that it does in the short term. Some other considerations, wherever ramp meters are put in, we want to have HOV bypass lanes for them. We did a count of vehicle traffic on 217, and about 13% of the cars are carpools or buses that can take advantage of that HOV lane. So if we put an HOV lane in, we can get 13% off using that lane. The ramp metering, this study cut off at Turnpike. The ramp metering may have effects on freeway operations going south that were not covered in this study. So it's possible there's some other benefits or impacts of ramp metering, if you meter in Goleta, that can have some effects further south going down towards Santa Barbara. That was not covered in this study. Another pro of ramp metering that wasn't specifically covered is it can have beneficial safety effects as you smooth out the merges. They found that you can reduce accidents, the kind of crashes that come in at merge points. That was not specifically accounted for in this study. And we didn't do a full cost-benefit analysis. We were just really looking at the operations and the delay. And if you have a situation where your freeway is carrying particularly a lot of goods movement that's very time-sensitive, that improvement of speed on the freeway can start to look like it has additional benefit compared to your local street delay because you're improving things for goods movement and trucks. On this particular stretch of freeway, it's not a particularly heavy truck route, and so it's felt like that impact might not be felt as much. So the conclusions of the study are that ramp metering can provide benefits to the US 101 freeway, particularly in the short term. Within the limits of this study, the ramp metering will not provide overall net benefits to the transportation system in the area. The freeway benefits are countered by the impacts on the local streets and on the ramp delay. And we have to look at a combination of measures to reduce future congestion so we don't get down to that 18 miles an hour I was showing. That could include metering. It includes some intelligent transportation systems that are being looked at, different types of demand management, increasing transit, and then people's behavior will continue to change with telecommuting, alternative work schedules that spread out the peak. In particular, a lot of the congestion is caused by this big burst of traffic that comes out of the Santa Barbara campus area right around 5:15 p.m. And to the extent that people's work situations change and that can be spread out, even that alone can make some difference in the congestion. So with that, that's our presentation. The study is on the website, and as Michael said, we'll be taking comments and adding additional material for the final report. With that, if anybody has any questions.
Yes.
Everybody knows that I'm an amateur traffic engineer because I have a driver's license. But I wondered if you could tell us the real source of the traffic that's in the study area. Can you tell us that?
The source of the traffic?
Yes. The major source. With my driver's license, I'm pointing out to the university area as one of the major problems on traffic on the 101 in that area and on 217.
That's one, but there's a fair amount of traffic on the freeway. There isn't a high volume of traffic coming in from north of Goleta. The volumes aren't that high, but it picks up a lot. You have the big shopping area around Stork,
right,
in Goleta, so there's a lot of traffic gets on there. There's some medical facilities, and a lot of traffic gets on. A lot of traffic gets on at Fairview. So it's pretty busy by the time the UCSB traffic comes in.
And then UCSB is going to provide more students, more student housing, and that kind of thing. So my concern is UCSB going to help us in paying for these this study, or at least the ramp meters?
This study doesn't commit to anything. So we just looked at what's the potential benefits, and the result of it is perhaps discussion by Caltrans and ultimately considered by this board whether it's a good idea and it's something that we want to move forward with. UCSB was involved in the advisory committee for this project. So
well, I would hope that in the future we could inquire to their participation in this project financially. Mm-hmm. That's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Director Bennett?
Thank you. Our council and our discussion on this whole thing, given the overall study and then the future that's been predicted, that probably doing nothing was going to be the answer overall just because of the impacts on the local streets. I would answer on the UCSB question. When UCSB adopted their latest long-range development plan, they have triggers within that plan as they add additional students and staff and faculty to pay both the city of Goleta and the county of Santa Barbara funds for mitigating traffic impacts, among other types of impacts that they create when they do this. And so that would be the funding source to solve problems within the city of Goleta and also in the county surrounding area. And there wasn't money specific that I recall. I could be wrong, but I don't recall any specific money being proposed or asked for on the state highway system from Caltrans. I don't think. I don't know. Michael, maybe you know.
No, I'm not aware of any either.
Okay. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Right. And the original project that triggered this whole study was funded by Caltrans. It was a Caltrans shop project to potentially install ramp meter on 217's connection to the 101. But beyond that, there was no funded project.
Director Wolf, did you have any questions, or anyone else in Santa Barbara? We're not hearing you. Oh, now we got it. Keep going.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. So, you know, this has always been termed the Goleta ramp metering study, and so I was surprised to see the information on Turnpike Road, which is in the county jurisdiction. So I'd like to know what kind of input you received from county residents around Turnpike.
County was involved. Yeah, so we had a county representative on the TAC, which met monthly for the better part of 2 years through this project. And also the study area was defined at some point long ago before my time in this role, and actually before I think Mike was involved with this project. The project's taken much longer than anybody anticipated, but that's whenever the grant was applied for, probably back in 2015, somebody sat down and said, this is the area we want to look at. And understandably, I think Patterson is right on the city limit, the city-county line, and then Turnpike's clearly in the county. And so we have had county representation on the advisory committee. And yeah, we had a public workshop back in 2016, then we have another one tonight.
So at the public workshop, have people been notified? Because that's in my district, and I wasn't notified. So I'm wondering, for instance, San Marcos High School is right there. There's, I'm just wondering what was the outreach in that area?
So we had a list of probably roughly 200 individuals that have expressed some kind of interest that we noticed. The city of Goleta has pushed it out through their media. For this workshop tonight, it went out through a public workshop listserv, or Public Works listserv. There was, so for noticing within the unincorporated county in that area, other than the people on that list, the organizations that represent various interests on the South Coast and to County Public Works, that would be about the extent of it.
Okay, well, I just want to express my concern about to me as the second district supervisor for that unincorporated area, and I don't know what the list is and the outreach for that area, so I just want to get my concerns on the record for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there anyone else in Santa Barbara who would like to comment or have questions?
Madam Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to thank the speaker for the explanation. It was fascinating. I'm not a amateur traffic engineer myself, but learning, and it's fascinating. You think something is straightforward and simple, and then you learn that you need to study the traffic patterns and everything. So I learned something today, so thank you.
And I'd like to add to that it's quite a science. I do have one question. As I understand the presentation, you're looking at current conditions and then you're looking at 2035 with build out in Goleta. Does 2035 also consider build out in the rest of the area? And another concern is with the widening of the 101 south, it'll be converging into a narrower set of lanes in this area. And so my question is, does your model incorporate that as well?
Well, the first question, what's considered in the rest of the county is kind of the official 2035 forecast, okay, which is consistent with what's being done for the regional transportation, okay, plan. And it's not necessarily build out of everything that's zoned. Goleta asked that we look at something a little beyond that. So in Goleta, it's actually probably would occur beyond 2035, the amount of growth we're looking at, because it's not only what the economic forecasters say will happen in Goleta, it's actually what if everything that's zoned will get built. So it's a little bit of a mix and match. But for the rest of the county, we assumed consistent with the growth forecast, consistent with the regional transportation plan. And then the question you're talking about coming northbound and things narrowing down. In effect, that was taken into account because that's part of both the US 101 HOV forecast that we were building off of, and also, again, the forecast done for the regional transportation planning consider the effects of that narrowing down, and we were consistent with those.
Okay, and one final question. So there is public hearing today after we, in a moment, here, and then outreach in Goleta. But what is the decision-making process? I mean, basically your conclusion is that it's probably not a good idea. How does that get formalized? So
for today, there is no public hearing as part of today's item. There will be a public workshop tonight, okay, in Goleta. So ultimately, the highway is owned by Caltrans, and it would be Caltrans who would propose adding meters on the ramps. And if we can use this study to inform how SBCAG would respond to a potential Caltrans proposal to add ramp meters, it shows benefit on the highway, and if that's in Caltrans' sole interest, then that may be something they may desire to do. But we did this for the purpose of what else happens when you do the ramp meters. And we found that between the congestion that's created on the ramps purposefully to meter out the traffic entering, and then also potential diversion, that in the bigger picture, it doesn't look as appealing. And that would just, to informs this board and informs SBCAG staff, so we can work with Caltrans to find solutions that are agreeable to all.
Okay, thank you. And so are there any public comments on this item?
We have no public comment.
No public comment. Well, thank you very much. It's a lot of hard work invested in that study and really impressive.
Thank you.
I just wanted the record to show that Director Williams is here and in fact came some time ago. And so turning to item number 8.
Item 8, Coast Rail Coordinating Council appointment. Appointed director to replace Director Hartman to serve as the SBCAG representative to the Coast Rail Coordinating Council.
Thank you. And Director Kern, I serve on this, but I Director Wolf resigned from SENCAL. SENCAL, I then became part of that, so I have a direct conflict, and so I reluctantly can't fulfill this obligation. But Director Bennett is willing to do it and knows a lot about railroads, and so I would like to nominate him for this position. Second. Any further discussion? Would you call the vote, please?
Directors Williams? Aye. Wolf?
Aye.
Adam? Aye. Lavanino? Richardson? Aye. Lizaldi?
Aye.
Mosby? Aye. Bennett?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Murillo?
Aye.
Patino? Sierra?
Aye.
And Chair Hartman.
Aye.
Motion passes 13-0.
Turning to item number 9 in our 1-minute reports. Do any directors... We don't have anything to read into the record for that, right? So, yeah. Director Williams.
Just that I've been taking the new retimed rail service, and every time I've taken it, even with the some of the delays that we experienced in the morning train, that overall it's saved time on commute because you may be about a wash in the morning if things go real poorly, but in the afternoon you've gained so much time because the PM commute is so much worse, and because the on-time performance of the PM train is so consistent that you gain a huge amount of time. Plus, you make a 2-year-old girl really happy if you bring her along. So I'm pleased to report that. Well, thank you for that softball. MTD is providing, as part of the scope of work that these fellows have worked out, MTD is providing a shuttle that basically waits for the train to get off, and you pile on the shuttle, and it takes you right up, and then and the shuttle runs all the way to Cottage Hospital as the next major employer. There's 3 shuttles. There's 2 in Goleta, one that goes west and one that goes east of the train station, and 1 shuttle in Santa Barbara that basically goes up the State Street corridor along. I mean, it's not quite anywhere, but they. Yeah, it stops within a block of the county building.
Great. Any 1-minute reports in South County in Santa Barbara?
Yes, Madam Chair. I wanted to report that the city of Santa Barbara is implementing its bicycle master plan with a couple of projects that we're proud of. A bike lane, a buffered bike lane on Coda Street from Milpas to State Street, and then another one on Rancheria, which is a street that serves the Lower West Side, City College students, a lot of people who work downtown and live on the west side. A lot of people use bikes. So we've got a little pushback because it did take out some parking on the curb, but our transportation planning staff have been addressing that, especially for some of the commercial business, some of the business owners who had concerns on Coda Street. So we're seeing people use it and hoping that as they get more comfortable, that we'll see more use of those bike lanes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Patino.
Yes, I want to announce anyone's interested in coming to the 75th Annual Elks Rodeo. It'll begin May 31st through June 3rd, and May 31st is a Thursday, and 10 o'clock in the morning is the mini rodeo. So what we do is we bus in all the 3rd graders in the valley to come and watch this, and the stands are full. And sometimes this is the only experience these kids get at the rodeo. And we are Measure U, which is basically funding public safety is going to come up for renewal in a couple of years. And so we're out doing a survey right now, and it's really interesting because the survey that was conducted in the community, 74% of Santa Maria residents are satisfied with the services they're getting. So we're very pleased with them, and I think was almost that close in the direction that we're going. So we're very pleased with the survey. And they even went so far as to say they would be willing to do more than the quarter-cent sales tax that we have right now in Measure U. So 95% of that Measure U has gone to public safety. And so we've been doing what we say what we're going to do. Thank you.
Seeing no more one-minute reports, we'll turn to our Executive Director report.
Excuse me, Chair Hartman, could I say something really quick?
Oh, absolutely. Sorry. Thank you for chiming in.
Thank you. No. I was waiting for North County. Anyway, I just wanted to, first of all, I want to thank Caltrans. When you get off heading southbound, you now get off with the sign that says exit to Avenue of Flags. And I just, after making such a huge issue out of this little thing for so long, I just wanted to thank Caltrans very, very much for the correction to the right spelling. I also, when you get off, if you would stop by and see, I believe the county provided the modern art, the grant for the modern artwork that's gone through Santa Barbara and Lake Cachuma and is now residing on Avenue of Flags. And it's beautiful. It's very contemporary. There's 3 pieces, and if anybody would like to stop by, we actually had somebody with a blanket out there the other day leaning against it reading a book, and it's something very special, and we thank the county very much.
Director Sierra, that was the county and Visit Santa Ynez Valley who contributed the funds for that, and it does look terrific.
Thank you very
Director
much.
Richardson.
Yes, I'd like to remind folks about the one of the greatest horse shows that's going to happen on May the 5th. Is the ride to the mission Santa Ynez of the Rancho Visitadores. It's a wonderful view to stand on the parking lot of the mission and see approximately 800 horsemen and horses come across that valley. And it's a big celebration, and we encourage you to attend. It'll be, the blessing will occur at about 3 o'clock on that Saturday at the mission. So we invite all to attend. Sorry?
Sure. I'm sorry. I have one more thing. So April 27th to 28th, the Strawberry Festival will be going on in Santa Maria, and an organization I belong to is California Women for Agriculture, and there'll be free tasting of strawberries, and you get to vote on your favorite strawberry. Thank you.
And Director Lizaldi, is your light on, or is that Director Bennett?
It's me.
Okay.
I just feel compelled to also thank Caltrans, since I made a big deal of the roadway signs exiting to the Cathedral Oaks Bridge. It now says Cathedral Oaks on all 3 signs. That's all I ever asked for, and I got it, and I'm extremely happy by that. So thank you so very much, Scott. And last meeting, I was incorrect when I thought they hadn't been changed out. When I went home from this meeting, I confirmed they, in fact, had been changed out and called with an apology to Scott to say so. So I thank you very much. Thank Caltrans, and it's a pleasure to see that we now know we're getting off on Cathedral Oaks Road.
Okay, I think that really does the 1-minute report. So our Executive Director.
Madam Chairperson, members of the board, if you haven't heard, we started train service on April 2nd, so I just want to make sure everybody knows about that. Our on-time performance is getting better each and every day. You know, we're checking it every morning. MTD is doing an excellent job with our last mile, and we also have a fairly popular program with our folding bikes. We have a program where people can acquire folding bikes if they leave a deposit, and if they ride the train for 40 times over 6 months, they get to keep the bike. So we have a waiting list for that. So it's a pretty popular deal there. The other big news I have, and I notified most of the board this week, is our EIR for the Highway 101 HOV project is complete. It's done. We got a judgment, a dismissal of the writ of mandate or something, all those technical words. Yes, it was that happened on Tuesday. So we have full steam ahead. We're on track. All those puns that I can think of moving forward to get that lane and the train going forward. We have Alternative Transportation Program Grant Workshop after the TTAC on May 3rd. All your staff's invited to that, and basically it's to promote us and educate our staff on applying for the Alternative Transportation Program grants. We have the City of Santa Barbara as our special guest because they've been so successful in getting these grants. We want to share that knowledge with everybody else and continue that success. The official action of the California Transportation Commission on SB1 will be on May 16th for the SB1 grants. So anticipation of some announcements that we'd like to tell people about. We'd like to have the May SBCAG board meeting in Santa Barbara so we can invite the press to talk about the action that happened the prior day. So I've asked the chair if we can move the meeting that's currently scheduled for Santa Maria to Santa Barbara, and she concurred, and we've also arranged for the Air District to have their meeting in Santa Barbara as well. So we'll have that agendized and noticed properly for you to participate in that next meeting. And then on June 21st, I've also requested the chair to have a workshop/study session of the board prior to your board meeting. So it'll be a more informal discussion about the 101 multimodal project and the next steps and everything that we anticipate, moving forward and getting going, and giving you a heads up on some of those major actions that are going to come forward, because we're expecting such good news to happen at your May meeting. So,
and Margie, we're going to do that in our large boardroom,
yes.
And it'll be a slightly different format.
Correct.
And really will be a workshop.
Yes, but it will be agendized. The public will be invited to attend, but it'll be a less formal setting for the board and the staff to interact on questions. But no actions will be taken at that meeting. It's literally a study session and just information sharing and discussions. So that's my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions in Santa Barbara? All right, turning to Caltrans, and you're on a roll.
Okay, Chair Hartman, members of the board, I'm Scott Eads, here for Richard Rosales today, the district director. I'm the 101 corridor manager, and have a few items to report. First of all, again, we're very pleased with the judgment on Tuesday. This puts us in a really good position to continue our work on 101. The team has worked very hard to get to this point, completing the revised EIR and then getting that back to the judge for his ruling. Next steps are really to focus on coastal development permitting and the other permits that we need from resource agencies. So we'll be coordinating very closely with, we're already coordinating closely with local jurisdiction staff. We'll continue to do so, and same with regional, the resource agency staff as well, to obtain all the permits we need and then complete the final design. We're also waiting for the CTC staff recommendations. We're very close to that, so we're excited about what that holds as well, and that's certainly going to set the stage in terms of our timing for beginning construction in the corridor and how much we can do in the next few years. On 192, just also want to report that we're completing design on all the structures that were impacted with the event on January 9th. We're moving forward as quickly as we can there without delay. There's utilities continue to be a key issue there, driving when we'll be able to begin construction. We've already started demo on the two structures that we have bridge rail replacement only, not full structural replacement, at San Ysidro and Toro West. And we're hoping to begin constructing those elements pretty soon, where we'll be able to open it back up to both lanes of traffic on those two structures. Just a couple of announcements. We have the Caltrans released the draft freight mobility plan for 2019. We're seeking public input on that. There's a few workshops throughout the state. None of them are local, unfortunately, but if you're looking for information on that, I can provide more. We also have the 2019 ATP Cycle 4 coming up. At the May CTC meeting on the 16th, they're going to be adopting the guidelines, and then the call to projects will probably occur on that day or very shortly after. Applications are due on July 31st of this year. That's all I have. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Eads. Any questions? And any questions in Santa Barbara? Seeing none, then we turn to item number 12, committee meetings, and Director Bennett.
Thank you. Actually, the committee meeting on the 19th was canceled, so we had the meeting on the, 19th. So it was rescheduled to the 29th. So we only had one meeting in March, and we canceled the meeting that was scheduled for April because it was so close to the end of the month. So in any case, I ran off this morning without my agenda to go through all the things we went over, but two most important things was the business plan and also the retiming effort. So those were discussed at some point and in some length. I'd like to give you some statistics on how we're doing in regards to the retime train for the peak hour. The first week we averaged 189.6 riders, and in the second week we averaged 186.4 riders, and this week we're in our third week of operation. And each of these weeks, we've given out passes for people, 10 ride passes to utilize, and they have been, in fact, being utilized. I have the statistics on those numbers, and 182 passes were used on the first day, and through the balance of the week, they really were ranging from about 126, 102, 120, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a pretty good turnout on something that you're getting for free to be able to utilize and the interest that's been shown. So I think the fact that we are continuing to see the ridership stay pretty stable, even though we've had bumps in the road on timing. In the first week, we only had one train that was on Friday that was on time. All the rest of the trains were, in fact, not on time. And so the 6th, which was Friday, April 6th, it did arrive on time both in Santa Barbara and Goleta. The problems that existed during the week was we had a locomotive that went down before it started up the rail, and we had dispatching problems that I believe have in fact been resolved, so we don't have conflicts with Metrolink coming out of Ventura, which had all been signed off that we wouldn't, but we did. But I believe we have that all resolved. The issue of the locomotive, just so you know, we're going to be taking delivery of 14 new type Tier 4 locomotives, which are the most green locomotives currently being manufactured. And we'll have 14 of those by January of 2019. And the first two that will go in operation, it's estimated they'll be going in operation in about 90 days from now. So it'll be a big change because the other locomotives are very, very tired. You can't add any more than 2 cars to them, so I've been told, because they are so tired. And that limits flexibility and ridership, of course. So we're pretty excited that those are coming on board. And the other problem we had in this last week was the cab car had a failure. The cab cars, when the train reverses and the locomotive's in the rear and the cab car's in front, that's what controls the train. It had a mechanical failure also, and so that needed to be addressed. This morning's train we were doing great all week until today, and we had about a 15-minute delay, and that was caused because of signaling problems that popped up in the same area as the flood disaster occurred. The signals were all down in there, and we could only go about 5 miles an hour, and actually had to stop at Olive Mill, let the conductor get off, and let the train pass, get the conductor back on. So they're still experiencing some challenges with the signaling system, and that's the reason why it was delayed about 15 minutes this morning. So on balance, we're doing well. We're trying to work through all of the issues. The southbound chain, I've made a strong recommendation to the executive director that the 768 train, which leaves Goleta at about 6:35 in the morning, that train be held back in Santa Barbara so that we don't delay the 759, which is coming north, because that has been a problem also. And so that seems to be working well. And so our train can go through and not be delayed. So we're working out the kinks, and we're learning more each week as we move through this. So, and it's been well populated. Our goal was at the end of 2 years, this 2-year pilot program, was to have about 200 riders. So we're very close to that number right now, just in the first 3 weeks. So we're pretty excited by that, and a number of people are buying single tickets and monthly tickets in addition to the 10 ride free passes. So they've been spending money when they could have had another option if they chose to. But nonetheless, we're still very excited on how successful the train has been. So I can answer any questions.
Director Williams.
Well, I wanted to remind staff of a idea that was a great tee off, and that challenge has reminded me of an idea. I mean, one of the things where we could lose riders is if people don't feel like they have a guarantee to get there, right? And
well aware.
We happen to be 50% partners in a transit service that stops 2 blocks away from where the train leaves in Ventura, where the majority of our ridership is. We have 3 buses that leave within a half an hour of when the scheduled departure is from Ventura. So can we work with VCTC to make sure that one of those buses is a designated safety, so that if we usually know about these delays substantially ahead of time, and where we could divert one of those buses to 2 blocks away, 2 blocks off route, to pick up our riders. Because to me, this isn't about having maximal number of train riders, or it's about keeping our ridership high in general on our services. And if people know that they have a guarantee to get there one way or another, they're going to be more likely to stick with us.
Madam Chairperson, members of the board, we do have discussions ongoing with VCTC. I have a meeting with Darren Kettle next week to talk about various issues, including this one. They just signed their acceptance of Surfliner tickets and passes on the Coastal Express, so that should not be an issue. So folks with the train ticket can get on the Coastal Express by just showing that train ticket. So that seamlessness exists right now. The rearranging of the route will need to be discussed. So we'll see what we can do.
Anybody have any final comments in Santa Barbara? And seeing no lights here, I think we're ready to adjourn this meeting until May 17th in Santa Barbara, starting at 10 a.m. And we hope for some good news next week. By email?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all.